So I noticed that there's been some questions with the citations, and there were some missing citations in the annotated bibliography summaries. I'm not sure if people just missed that portion of the direction or people were unsure in the citation, but there have been a couple of emails asking about it. And so let me explain. This is a very simplified version of what your research is, your research quotes and stuff like that. I mean, but we'll get into that in a second. Okay, so let me just break it down for you. Quotation. When you're directly quoting somebody word for word, you're lifting a word for word quote. You haven't changed the thing of it out of research. This is what it must have. It must have an attributive tag, signal phrase, or anchor phrase. That's that little thing, like a lot of you guys put, research states that, or in a Harvard Medical Journal article, it stated that. In this case, I'm just using she said, for example, just to make things simple. The part that is word for word must have quote marks. If the quote is a full sentence, then the first word in the quote needs to be uppercase. Just a little, info for you. It looks like everybody pretty much got that, though. And here's an example. She said, "The moon has poured its blue milk on the pasture." Um, so what this is missing right now is the citation. Okay? So this example includes a page number citation, the author's last name followed by the page number. In modern versions, I think now in MLA, you put you don't have to put the P or anything like that. If you're doing APA, you do. But anyways, we're doing MLA, so it's going to be. She said, "The moon has poured its blue milk on the pasture." Notice that the period mark does not go after pasture. If it was a question or an exclamation point, it would. But the period closes the sentence, and the sentence is not complete until you have that uh, the Smith 316, page 316, cite, parenthetical citation or in-text citation there. Okay. So if you're quoting part of a sentence, then you can just, kind of work it in grammatically. It has to be grammatically correct to your sentence. But you have to put the part you use word for word in quote marks. So for this example, I heard her say the moonlight looked like and blue milk on the pasture. Okay, so here we have our parenthetical citation now. Notice I'm putting the period after the 316, after the page number, after the parentheses, close out the sentence. All right, now, if you'll notice in the example here, there is no Smith in the parenthetical, the author's last name here. Because it's used in the sentence, or, it could be anywhere like, let's say up here. In that case, again, we do not need to include her name in the citation. So since her name is here, we don't have to have it in the citation, but we do have to have the page number. Just a general rule of thumb, you should use quotes sparingly only to prove points in your essay. All essays using quotes, even a research essay, should be 70, 30, 80, 90% your words, 10 to 30% quotes. Got to have those citations. All right, and of course, it's going to need a reference page. Now, this is where it gets tricky. A paraphrase is different because sometimes you pull a quote and its tone does not really fit in very well to the tone of your essay, or you may have a different reason why you want to change the wording. Maybe you've used certain wording in your essay and you need to kind of change things around a little bit so it flows better. Maybe you're trying to adjust the rhythm, whatever. But when you paraphrase, what you're doing is you're putting the research or the source material in your own words. But it has to be completely different from the original in wording and syntax, but it has to have the same meaning. Okay, so this is what you have to have for a paraphrase. So you have to have an attributive tag, a signal phrase, or an anchor phrase to let people know where the research starts, or you run the danger of plagiarism because you may be confused with your own writing. And there's no way to tell when the research starts, okay? So it must be, the paraphrase must be completely in your own words, and the syntax is fancy talk for sentence structure, must be completely different. But the meaning of whatever you're pulling has to be the same. Okay? You have to have that parenthetical citation, that parentheses with the author name and the page number at the end. Sometimes you don't have an author. You may have like a company name or something, or some organization, or sometimes you may have a short and abbreviated version of the title, but you got to have a citation. Okay, it does not use quotes. Here's an example using the same quote from above about the moon pouring blue milk, except for this time we're putting it in our own words. Ella Smith's story discussed the glow of the moon's light on a field at night. We completely changed the words, completely changed the syntax, paraphrased it in our own words. Okay, you shouldn't use paraphrases very often at all. There's really no reason to. It's mainly used by AI and people who are getting essays offline or using chatbot GPT to write essays for them. So, if we see it, we're immediately suspicious. All right, summary. Now, summary is different because you're taking a large amount of information and you need to like shrink it down to kind of get the point of it. So, like, let's say you're writing an essay and you're pulling like information from a psychology journal. You don't have time to explain the intricacies of the whole experiment they did, some kind of behavioral experiment on people or whatever. And you just need to distill it down to the whole point, the end summation of that experiment, what ultimately become of it, what ultimately has come of it. So, when you're doing summary, you're taking a large amount of information and shrinking it down to its most important parts, distilling it down like a fine liquor. And you basically, maybe you're taking 10 pages down and you're summing it up in a paragraph. Or maybe you're taking a page and you're summing that up in a sentence or two, or a paragraph into one sentence. But these are the rules for it. It must maintain the original meaning, but be mostly in your own words. However, you may keep key terminology and some phrasing and wording from the original because there's some things you just can't change, right? There's some things that you don't want to change because, it draws from the original source. You have to have a citation. That in-text citation at the end, you got to have that. Just like with the paraphrase, you got to have it because it tells us where it ends. If you have no quotations, no direct quote marks, that signal phrase tells us where it starts, and that attributive tag tells us that in-text citation with the author and the page number, that tells us where it ends. If it's something off the internet, doesn't have a page number, use paragraph number. All right, and it does not use quotes. Okay, so I hope that helps explain some things. So this attributive tag, she said, like I said, that'd be, like many of you are saying in your annotated bibliographies, the research states. So thank you.